OK, parfait.
Fresh, independent eyes approach a new field with a deep curiosity. This is the way I feel about going into a field. I'm going a new field. I'm going in it to loot it for an idea. I'm not going in to get a license.
Welcome to the Night Science podcast,
where we explore the untold story of the scientific creative process.
We are your hosts.
I'm Itai Yanai.
And I am Martin Lercher. We are so grateful to have Edward Tufte with us today. E.T. has taught data analysis and public policy as a professor at Princeton and Yale for 31 years. He received his bachelor's and master's degrees in statistics from Stanford, a PhD in political science from Yale, and 9 honorary degrees. The work for which he is maybe best known are 5 books on analytical thinking and showing, which Edward Tufte wrote, designed, and self-published.
And remarkably, besides his science work, E.T. is also an artist. Starting in 2007, he designed and constructed a 234-acre art park that is known as Hogpen Hill Farms that shows his outdoor artworks. I actually had a chance to visit Hogpen last November. I had a wonderful time with a great friend, and I recommend it to anyone. It's a truly enlightening experience. And I think it really shows what kind of a person E.T. is, both scientist and artist. I think for Martin and I, E.T. is an absolute hero. He has taught the world about how data needs to be visualized and communicated. His books have had, I would say, such an immeasurable influence on how to eliminate distractions from visualizations that he calls chart junk, and how to add layers of information for effective comparisons, that a lot of the early works is now sort of self-evident because the world has internalized it, so to speak. And in his most recent book that came out during the pandemic, Seeing with Fresh Eyes, Meaning, Space, Data, Truth, E.T. introduces the concept of the thinking eye for revealing meaning from data. It's an inspirational read that we really recommend. So welcome, E.T.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. I'm glad you enjoyed my sculpture fields because they're completely outside of the rest of the damn world. That was the wonder about the sculpture fields during the pandemic. Could forget about everything there.
I would love to go. I've only seen pictures of your artwork, but I'd really love to go there.
Definitely. Martin, next time you're here, I'm taking you up to Hogpen.
Awesome. I'm looking forward. E.T., to get started, can you tell us what the thinking eye is and what role it plays in science?
That's a terrific question because in my new book, I wrote a free verse about the thinking eye. I tried to turn everything into general principles. So let me go read this free verse to you. It's the most coherent summary that I have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So here's the thinking eye. To see the ordinary so intensely that the ordinary becomes extraordinary, becoming so focused, so specific about something that it becomes something other than what it ordinarily is. Always on, thinking eyes see intensely, actively, skeptically, scan globally, focus locally, see at varying scales of space and time, approximating ways through multiplicity, detecting how things happen, move, act, interact, seeing with fresh eyes, vacation eyes. I love that phrase, seeing with fresh eyes, vacation eyes, unhindered by self-confirming words, models, expectations. Not seeing something different is not seeing anything at all. Grace Hopper saying, the most dangerous phrase in the language is, we've always done it this way. Staying in optical experiences, forgetting the name of what one sees, that's a very important idea of staying in the optical experience and not going into the word experience too early. Shut up and look. If you see something, say nothing. defamiliarize, decontextualize, recontextualize, reform, remodel. Thinking eyes are of this world. Thinking eyes ask, how do you, I, they really know that? Reason about verbs, links, mechanisms, connections, dynamics. Reason about what things do, not what things are named. That's a very important idea there. Reason about verbs, not nouns. Reason about what things do, not what things are named. They do things in the world, in physical space. The names are in 300 different languages. Reason across multiple time horizons. Then, now, forever. Name, rename, remodel. Thinking eyes compare, model, choose, doubt, decide, compare again. Then, thinking eyes act. Make something of seeing and reasoning. Discover, produce, construct. Write a report. Make an artwork. Teach a class. Have an insight. Understand, explain, show, get on with it. To produce, construct, model, remodel, to act is essential. It is the difference between spectator and player, consumer and producer, art chat versus artwork.
Wow, a lot there.
I'm still moved by this. Each time I read it aloud, it still gets to me.
I can see why. And, our readers should know that this passage comes at the very beginning of E.T.'s new book. And there's so much there to unpack. Just to start with, I just want to ask you if you agree with the following concept. That's very much sort of at the core of what Martin and I are thinking about in terms of day science and night science. It seems to us that when you talk about the thinking eye and looking at verbs and vacation eyes, there's a lot of exploratory, there's a lot of looking and finding and hunting and not hunting, I should say, exploring and trying to find meaning, trying to find the story of the data. And then you distinguish by saying thinking eyes act, right? There's then the Craig Venter quote also of making it reality. So the counterpoint to that is to do something about what you've seen. Do you agree with that assessment, that there's sort of this dichotomy of seeing and then doing?
I've never noticed it. It could be separated analytically, but I do lots of seeing in wonderful places. I get to play in other people's backyards and watch what's going on. And that happened in my work in consulting. So I was corporate consultant at IBM for 4 or 5 years, a long time ago. And I learned much more from them than they learned from me, because I was watching, and also trying to change IBM was like trying to change Sweden. So as I was seeing, I was converting what I was seeing into proposed activities. So I was watching their production of manuals and their interfaces. And especially in consulting and giving opinions, I would see a new product and I would provide my ideas right there, opinions about how it should be acted upon. So it was just one thing followed from another, which is what happens in student critiques and architecture, is people look at it and then they say how it might be acted on. So I never noticed that distinction. A really good example of going quickly to action is material in this book on data analysis. And here's the idea. You never learn more about a process than when you watch the direct measurements of the process going on. So if you're doing medical research and just go out on the floor and watch how they measure blood pressure, how they measure, patient things. Most researchers will be appalled by the noise introduced.
Right.
But you also learn about the process, things to intervene and of itself.
Does the measurer know what to expect, right? Does the person making the measurement have a...
Yes, and you can talk to the texts that are doing the measurement.
Right.
And ask them, what do you do when you have an outlier? And they'll say, oh, we ignore that. It can't be real. Okay.
That's common sense.
They just trim the thick tail of the distribution right off.
Yeah.
Or did they replicate it, a few minutes later? So you start learning about the process.
When you talk about making a connection between what you see and some possible action, as far as I understand, that requires to have some model of the world. I mean, how what you see relates to the problem that you want to solve. Now, when you presented that text about the vacation eyes, you talked about that they should be unhindered by words and by models. But then data and images have no meaning by themselves. So don't we need a model of the world in order to make any sense of anything we look at?
The idea about vacation eyes and eyes before words partly applies in looking at sculpture. People often, when they look at sculpture, if they were told that sculpture sold for €1 million in Zurich last week, they couldn't see it any other way. If they were told that that sculpture was made from the bars of torture cells by freed political prisoners, they couldn't see it any other way. And so I know, at least in art, that we really want to try early on to be in the perception, to see without words, because words will win. A model will win. And so it's to stay in perception. Now, when it comes to data, here's a personal experience that makes the point. When I used to do a lot of consulting for just about everybody, usually the way it would be done is that the manager of the department that was doing the interface would prep me and describe what this is about and so on. And I would actually interrupt and say, let me just see with my stupid eyes, because your words will make them come true if I see it. Let me just see it, bare, and then we can say what's supposed to be going on here. Really, in a sense, undriven and even uncorrupted by words. So there is a very applied situation, and the product manager very much wants to pitch you because the interface isn't done. There are problems. There are problems that they're solved, and they want you to see that they've solved those problems. So I try to avoid guided seeing for as long as I can. And then I would critique it. I say, I'm going to say a lot of stupid things here because I don't know why you're doing this. But there'll be some things that are maybe fresh and free of words.
Yeah, and this seeing with fresh eyes, you address it also in the book. On page 46, you talk about this difference between people working in a discipline and other people being more outsiders.
Let me read those 3 paragraphs aloud. Seeing with fresh eyes, a sense of the relevant. Thinking, seeing, analytical, fresh eyes have a sense of what is relevant. Finding what is important in a mass of data and knowledge. Seeing something worthwhile to gain leverage. A sense of the relevant is the ability to identify and detect those things that have consequences beyond themselves. The common guide to relevance is a discipline or profession. There are many good reasons for local expertise. That's why it's called a discipline. But from a reforming and creative point of view, my point of view, the world itself is so more interesting, amazing, and consequential than any one discipline or profession. That's another way of saying that I have a short attention span. Creativity is connecting things. This was a big point of Steve Jobs, by the way. Creativity is connecting things. But in disciplines, connections become enshrined, narrowed, exhausted, prohibited within a discipline or profession. Fresh, independent eyes approach a new field with a deep curiosity. This is the way I feel about going into a field. I'm going a new field. I'm going in it to loot it for an idea. I'm not going in to get a license. and a degree or something. For instance, I learned how to be a blacksmith in order to make sculptures. And so I was pounding some metal and stuff, and then they started instructing me. And the second lesson in being a blacksmith is how to make bilaterally symmetric objects, like a fork or a spoon or something, and how to, keep that balance in bilateral symmetry. And I thought, I don't have to learn any of this to get a blacksmith license because I'm an abstract artist. I don't do symmetry. And so it disposed of the standard series of lessons. And I could start, banging out asymmetric pieces, on the second day. So it's looting the discipline.
Very liberating, right? You're not tied down to any passing an exam. You just pick and choose what you want.
Yes, and it's in your self-interest, not in the interest of disciplinary training. You sometimes have to be gracious and accommodating about this and say, I'm really interested in this line. And, I'm never going to be able to get a license in this and learn all those till your secrets. But I want to look, because as I wrote, is the fresh eyes approach a new field with a deep curiosity and focused learning. That is so much fun to be in a thing that's new and different. For this book, I watched 3 heart surgeries at the Cleveland Clinic. Each one goes on for hours. I watched an open heart surgery where they cut through the chest, and then 2 robotic surgeries. And so I've gotten to poke around in a lot of fields. Like when I worked on the NASA stuff and on the Columbia accident, I got to travel around and teach NASA people, but I also got to see their toys.
But E.T., when you mentioned the heart surgery, and you say that it was done as part of research for the book, do you mean that you were studying how the data analysis was happening in real time, or was it from a different angle?
It was from that, because I figured out, and then I saw in work, the transesophageal echocardiogram, and that's where they put an echo down the esophagus of the patient. Normally, when you have an echo, they push on the side of your ribs, but there's too much mass. It's only a few millimeters away from your heart when it goes down the esophagus of the patient. It gives a tremendous real-time data in one of the best displays and most consequential displays ever made. It's as consequential as Galileo or as consequential as Feynman diagrams. It's real-time, now get this, signal processing, real-time, showing the video of the patient's heart beating last week when they did the echo, and correcting, doing error correction. And I write about that in the book, and it's just, I was blown away. And so I measure now machine learning and AI by, are they worth 1/100th of the transesophageal echocardiogram? Or maybe 1,000th of the performance.
It's the unit of measurement.
And because it's a real standard and it's real time. It's not people modeling stuff and overfitting and then it bombs in practice, after they try it on the screen, then in practice it doesn't work out very well. So I was just blown away when I saw that. I had no idea that this was going to be a spectacular example of machine learning already in front of us, and AI, and quality control of heart surgery.
Amazing.
What a miracle thing.
Amazing, amazing. So, Itai, what you tell us about your interest in other fields and from your own huge credibility in science and, also with your sculptures and art, it seems that you're a true Renaissance mind.
I put it, I just have a short attention span. Okay.
Well, maybe that was true for all the great Renaissance minds. Who knows? Anyway, what I was wondering is, when you were talking about looting other fields, it sounded more like you would dip in, grab whatever you can get a hold of and run with it. But then one can also go into another field, not with the purpose of getting a license, but with the purpose of making some contribution from an outsider's perspective, which has fresh eyes.
Yes, sometimes it's very annoying to people in the field. You have to be a bit diplomatic with it. Medical researchers for example, think they know more about statistical graphics than they know about medicine. They have very firm views on statistical graphics. And they say, I really like to use orange and blue together in my graphics because it was, when I went to Syracuse, those were the colors. But they have very firm views. And they don't necessarily like people, coming in and saying, do this. Don't use chart chunk, even though you might like it. So there are some fields that are more open-minded in a way to things. But there are a lot of authors who have a lot of personal investment in their data graphics, and they like having control over them. And here's, another person coming along with a style sheet telling them how to make their papers. I think the way you make progress in a field like that is you point to really good examples in the literature itself of the field and say, well, they use Kaplan-Meier survival graphics or mortality paths, and look at the features of this. And so they see it in their own context, especially if it's a very famous, good article. Say, well, so-and-so did this in their classic article. That really worked.
And E.T., a main part of the book is about the sort of classic distinction that John Tukey made between confirmatory and exploratory science. Now, John Tukey, that's another hero of ours. He's one of the most famous statisticians of all time. He wrote a textbook called Exploratory Data Analysis, where he said, look, statistics used to be cool. We used to be discovering things. Now we're just finding p-values. Let's also return to detective work and finding new ideas. And you, E.T., you interacted a lot with him. And I think John Tukey is always in the background in a lot of your work. I'm really curious to hear you talk about Tukey and your, maybe also on a personal level, what your relationship with him was. It's so fascinating.
I was 24 and looking for a job teaching. I just finished my thesis, and Princeton wanted me to come. And there, the public affairs school, and they did a very cool thing, which is I interviewed with people in politics and political economy, but they had me meet John Tukey. And did I study statistics the night before? And it turned out they wanted his stamp of approval. I had been reading as a bachelor's and MS and BS in statistics. I'd been reading manuscripts of Tukey's work. And we talked actually about shotgunning of data, where you compute nowadays 100,000 models and pick the favorite one. We talked about that and had a serious conversation. Then in 1973, I was getting into graphics, and John heard about it. And in 1975, we taught the first course in, modern statistical graphics, data analysis graphics. And he gave me the manuscript to EDA, and he wanted me to write problems for it. And I decided absolutely not. I thought I wasn't smart enough to do it, wasn't qualified. John was wonderful, and we worked on elections together and calling elections and things. But I didn't want to do data analysis statistical textbooks very much. I was interested in other substantive things. And so we taught the course on graphics, and it was very interesting. He would talk every other week, and then I would talk every other week. And it was very scary for me. I had tenure by then, but it was still pretty scary with John. But what was interesting, he would talk for 10 minutes about graphics, and the other 110, he'd talk about data analysis and EDA. Mm-hmm. And I discovered I could talk for 2 hours about statistical graphics. So it was oddly reassuring that I was doing kind of different ideas, and he agreed with some of them, didn't agree with some others. But it was actually having him watch and comment, and it was very reassuring. And so he was very influential early on.
Yeah. So you were telling us that when you taught this course together with Tukey, that you would talk about graphics for 2 hours, and then Tukey would talk mostly about exploratory data analysis in his 2 hours. What's the intersection between these two things, between graphics and looking at graphics and exploratory data analysis?
The difference is in any kind of data analysis, you do whatever it takes. So you use words, you use graphics, you use numbers, you use videos, you use sock puppets, you use everything you possibly can. And then you combine them together. You don't segregate your information by, oh, here's a graphic on this slide, here are some words on this slide, or in journals where they put the graphics on a page that's different from the text and they disintegrate. So the answer to any question like that is you do whatever it takes. Graphics or words or numbers all become information elements. Information, not a method. Words become information units as numbers do, as graphics do. And so you don't treat anything, it's all information after all. That's the important thing. And that's one of the biggest principles of all my work, which is that do whatever it takes. And the material that you show should be completely integrated. Like there should be graphics in sentences, inline graphics, like spark lines. There should be this. Graphics should be heavily annotated, except maybe in exploratory analysis where you don't want to see all those words. But you want to see maybe in data analysis, not the annotations, which may direct you too much. You want to see maybe with fresh eyes.
That's
the data things.
Too much annotation would get in the way of the vacation eyes.
Maybe they are, but maybe annotations are data.
Maybe. I guess it depends, right? And when you look at data graphically, you can, of course, look at it from very different angles, and you can look at different layers separately or simultaneously. And I was just wondering, if you think about explicitly using graphics, I mean, of course, there's other types of evidence and they're equally important, but if we specifically think about graphics in the context of exploratory data analysis, are there any guidelines of what to do? You say do whatever it takes, but like what would be the first steps for someone who wants to use graphics in order to make a discovery, whatever that may be?
This is disciplinary segregation and the virtues and non-virtues of a method. All these methods are useful. And if you want to see them, look at good scientific displays and stuff, or look at very good displays and see what they do. And the most important thing of data analysis is you have somebody who can count and who knows about the content, or at least they work side by side, because the counting is this kind of special skill. So when I taught data visualization at Yale, there would be designers in and there'd be statisticians. And I made them all do their homework together because the two things were orthogonal. Designers couldn't count, but they could sure see. And the statisticians couldn't see, but they sure could count. So I made them work side by side. Well, in real practice, you want a substantive person next to the data who understands it. But you've got to be careful because the substantive person might be an advocate of a particular point of view. Maybe it's an outsider substantive person and a data person.
And as you talk about in chapter 4, the person with an agenda could do horrible things to the data.
It's an enormous problem.
And the data will confess to anything, as you say.
Yes. If you look long enough, that's a Tukey saying, if you look long enough, it will submit to the torture and it will say anything you want. A lot of people have said that, but John said it too.
So you detail a lot of nightmare scenarios where researchers have done horrible things, just dishonest things. And it's led to a reproducibility crisis in science. And I want to ask you if you agree with the following, because I think there's an important point here that needs to be stated. And that is the relationship between John Tukey's exploratory data analysis, now it's the world's exploratory data analysis, not just Tukey's, and confirmatory science. So the Tukey idea is that there's a difference between the detective and the judge. When you have a data set, the detective looks around, explores, looks for relationships, and the judge is now the arbiter and computes the statistical significance of the findings. And I want to know if you agree with the notion that when we talk about all of these nightmares of dishonesty that leads to the reproducibility crisis, it's really an issue not with exploratory data analysis, but actually with confirmatory. The notion that Martin and I have tried to promote is that you should explore your data set to get ideas, generate a hypothesis. Once you have a hypothesis, then you need an independent data set for which you have pre-registered your hypothesis. And then, like you say in the book, you can sort of have the manuscript and tables all set, even without the data, because you know exactly what analysis you will do once you get the data.
I agree with everything you're saying. Brad Efron and friends at Stanford set aside data or punish looks at data, adjust findings for looks at data. There's a lot of ways to have penalty. They're called penalties, of course, in the findings. There are some caveats. A really good research design doesn't require analysis. The findings come direct, straight out of the research design, as in Kaplan-Meier mortality curves. The data testifies very directly whether the drug works against a placebo, and it speaks for itself. The TEE stuff speaks to highly trained people, and it's continuous. It's huge amounts of data, but it's assisting those people. So there's a batch of things that work very clearly. Even R.A. Fisher said that a good experimental design doesn't need my statistical models. The one other point is that replication should be on the most applied possible situation you can find. Maybe even a field run, a randomized control trial in the field that you've based your discovery on. Because that's the real test that's going to be made, is whether it works in Malaysia. It works in the field. And so the final honest replication might be even a very different data set. So I would say toughen up the replications. And also journals should be more welcome studies that don't find anything.
Negative results.
Yeah. This is obviously a great bias, right? That we
It's
probably
been
all
a
know from our
terrible
own
bias
work.
for 100 years. And I could have published a lot more papers myself if they let the failures.
Yeah. I mean, there are journals who at least claim on their websites that they accept negative findings as long as it's scientifically sound.
Yeah, except the referees are people who have positive findings.
Yeah, that's certainly part of the problem. But then, I'm not proud of that, right? But from my own experience, my motivation to write up a paper about a negative finding is not so high because I know hardly anyone will ever read that paper, right? So,
well, if it's a major paper, they'll read it. If you come across a highly cited finding, you begin your thing and say, this article has been cited 582 times. That'll get people's attention, the article at your view.
No, of course. If you write an anti-paper, that can work, right?
Yeah,
but
I tried to replicate it. It didn't replicate.
Yeah, but maybe I did something before anybody else published about it, and I had a hypothesis. It didn't turn out to be supported by the data. I just forget about it. Instead I could have published it. But, as long as 100 people have the same hypothesis, a few of them will have significant findings at a 5% significance level.
I think there's too much kind of imaginative gaming about how publications work. And it's all complex, and it's publishers and journals and stuff. And you can't do much about it. Don't let it govern you. Just say, I learned something interesting here. I want to tell the world about it. And make sure you put it on archive. And you send it to, 50 people in the field. An editor of the best journal in political science, which had circulation of 15,000, told me once that he thought only 5 to 10 people read any of the published articles. And you want to strike early on archive and send the link to 50 people in your field. And that will be your audience. It won't be by going through the publication process. Everybody's looking now at archive.
Now that you said that, it's so obvious, right? But I haven't actually ever done that, right? To just send the link to the 50 people who I think would benefit from reading it. Yeah,
of course. That's your audience.
Or at least your mother and father.
Well, those as well, yes.
I have a joke about that, about most papers are never cited in most fields. It's like 95% are never cited, not even by the author's mother. Mom wouldn't cite my paper.
E.T., you mentioned
just now, and it's actually been a theme of this episode and perhaps your whole career, that you see yourself as an outsider coming in, looting, as we discussed. And in the passage you read to us at the outset, you mentioned vacation eyes that allow you to see things with a certain kind of new awareness, as though, I live in New York City, so I walk these blocks all the time, but maybe someone just arriving from out of town, they'll stroll the streets with vacation eyes. They see things that I'm just ignoring. They see things that are unexpected. They pick up on it. And that's a nice analogy for what you should do when studying data. So my question to you is actually twofold. One is, what's your secret for switching on the vacation eyes? How do you do it? And then if you wish to indulge us, maybe tell us how you do it in your art sphere. How do you turn on vacation eyes and think of a new sculpture for the amazing Hogpen Hill?
Well, the sculpture is easy because I use almost any material. I have no particular style except that it have a beauty and serenity to it. And it's not about words or clients. It's just inherently about seeing. And so the seeing involves light, color, glare, reflections, and walking around. So there are many words. When I look at a work in progress, I walk towards it and walk back, and then I walk away with closed eyes, and then I get away from it on a different side, and then open my eyes so I can see change. Or if I drive a gator, a little six-wheel cart, around a piece so it changes rapidly enough that I can see change. By vacation eyes, I mean the first 3 days you're in a vacation place and everything you see is new and you are just seeing all this new stuff. And then by about the 5th day, you've seen that restaurant already and stuff. It's something about, I love that expression. I heard it somewhere, vacation eyes. And everybody knows what it is when they go to a place. They see new stuff. The next step is talking to people like the techs that are doing the measurement. You can hear about what they do with their eyes and their hands and their mind. And I love that. I just love learning insider stuff. And I always feel like I'm an outsider, just poking around. I do all these cool things and it seems like I'm an insider. I always feel like a stranger.
Well, maybe that's your superpower, to be an outsider.
Well, I guess it's just seeing with fresh eyes. It's like, I like the vacation eyes again. You're in a new place and you see all this stuff for a little while. It's like that person is like that. They are your vacation eyes. It's like that. They are your vacation eyes, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, because when you're talking to someone, for example, as we have been talking during this session, you sort of get an appreciation for their worldview, how they see things, and you experience it with vacation eyes. You're so new to this new perspective. Well, first of all, our listeners had vacation eyes listening to you now, so they are grateful and we are grateful as well.
Oh, well, thank you. You really got me going here. I greatly enjoy it. Thank you so much for
it. Was great fun.
No, it was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for all your books. And
yes, terrific.
Maybe the next time we visit Hogpen, we'll drop you a line and see if you happen to be there at the time.
Oh, I may well be, and you definitely should. And maybe we can record walking around or something.
Oh, that would be amazing. Like a walking tour.
Yeah,
a walking
tour. Great.
Maybe we better have some pictures, though, folks.
That's true. Yeah, it is ironic that there have been no pictures while talking about the thinking eye here.
Yeah, but the words in the book that I read and so on, they paint some pictures.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.